Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Bill Spencer was sitting in his leather chair with his fingers clasped together, the weight of his secret pressing down on him like the intense summer heat outside. The room was bathed in the dim glow of the Los Angeles evening, the kind of twilight that seemed to soften the edges of the Forrester mansion but did nothing to soften the hardness in his eyes. Bill knew this moment would crush him, that the words he was about to say would set off a storm of grief and rage unlike anything Liam had ever experienced. Liam had been pacing the office with a restless tension radiating from him, the kind that only comes when a man feels the world shifting beneath his feet, when life itself seems poised on the knife's edge of tragedy. For weeks, the industry had been filled with stories about Wyatt's wild exploits and involvement in risky financial dealings. But nothing had prepared Liam for the heartbreaking truth he was about to face. Bill said Liam in a quiet, measured voice as though he were attempting to contain the impact, but he knew there would be no way to do so, no way to lessen the destruction. Liam halted in the middle of his stride, his eyes narrowing as his brow knitted into a frown. What is it, Bill? Why do you sound as though the end of the world is on the horizon? Beneath the polished oak of his desk, Bill's hands clenched into fists, his jaw flexed, and his lips formed a thin line. He finally whispered, "It's Wyatt," allowing the name to linger in the air as if saying it out loud gave it a dreadful tangibility and a sense of finality. "Your brother has passed away." The sound of the air conditioner, a slight buzz that seemed ridiculously ordinary in comparison to the devastating weight of the statement, was the only sound in the room for a time as the words sliced through it like a sharp knife through silk. Every muscle in Liam's body tensed in shock, and his thoughts stopped in a moment of denial. His voice was brittle and scarcely audible as he murmured, What do you mean he's dead?" As though he was scared that the mere act of speaking would break him, Bill leaned forward with his hands holding the desk's corners like a man securing himself against a storm, his eyes unwavering. "Liam, he was in an accident this afternoon. Authorities verified that there had been a car crash on the expressway. Nobody could do anything about it." "I'm so sorry." Liam's knees almost gave out under him, but he managed to stay upright thanks to his innate power. The hot sting of tears threatened to spill, unbidden, unyielding, and he put his palms to his face like a crazy slideshow. Memories of Wyatt flashed through his mind, including his mischievous smile, protective nature, and late-night, heart-to-heart conversations. Each one brought back memories of the brother he believed would always be there, the brother who had always been the heartbreaker, the wild card, and the one who could make Liam laugh even when life seemed unbearably difficult. "Liam," exclaimed, No, this can't be happening," his words teetering on the verge of despair. Wyatt was all right. Yesterday, he gave me a call. He was discussing plans for the future, but he couldn't and wouldn't since this was the moment Liam would never forget. The kind of loss that changes a man and leaves unseen scars that run deep under the surface. Bill felt a twinge of shame as his voice trailed into a strangled sob. Bill's voice was particularly soft as he remarked, "I know it's hard, Liam," revealing the true sadness he felt despite all of their shared struggles and betrayals. "I wish I could have taken any action at all. However, it happened really quickly. The hospital and paramedics did everything they could, but knowing that completing the words would only make the wound worse, he let it die, trying to make this horror into a dream that he could wake from. Liam's hands trembled, and he held on to the edge of a chair for support. His eyes were glassy, and he was staring into nowhere. Bill, I'm not sure what to do. No, I don't. His voice broke once more, and he sagged into the chair across from Bill's desk, his chest threatening to be crushed by the avalanche of grief. Except for Liam's erratic breathing, which revealed the internal turmoil, the office was quiet. Time appeared to stretch, to distort, to taunt him with its merciless continuity, while the city outside continued on, unaware of the personal catastrophe taking place in that chamber. Bill stayed sitting, attempting to decide how much to say and how much to let Liam figure things out on his own. He was always the strategist, even in human weakness. At last, he murmured softly, but firmly, "Listen, Liam, you'll have a lot to deal with, including the family and funeral plans. You should consider how you want to say goodbye." Liam's head raised a little and his eyes briefly locked with Bill's, looking for any ray of comfort or hope, but Bill's face was a reflection of the brutal reality. "Liam, he's gone. Your brother has left." The room echoed with the words, each syllable a hammer blow to a heart never put to the test like this. The cold reality sank like lead in Liam's stomach as his thoughts whirled, seeking to absorb, to hold on to shards of reasoning, to deny the finality. The room whirled with the harsh combination of responsibility mixed with his anguish as he thought of Hope, Steffi, and everyone else who would be grieving with him. "I am unable to," he repeated the whispered phrase. "I can't believe this," as though he could reverse the impossible if he said it enough times. Bill was silent for a while, understanding that no words could reverse the damage done, and that no apology could mend the broken pieces of an untimely death. Finally, with the sobering reality of the situation leaking through his sadness, Bill stated, "You have to tell Hope. She will want to be with you, and will need to." "No. Additionally, your dad needs to hear it as well. Eric will be heartbroken." The stifling emptiness settled in Liam's chest as his head sunk once again, and he tasted the dry taste of tears on his lips. The harsh irony of their final exchange plagued him, and every memory of Wyatt, every altercation, every giggle, every wild excursion played like a movie in his head. He had dismissed his brother's cautions against dangerous behavior and smiled at Wyatt's jokes, never realizing that it would be the last time he heard his voice. "I ought to have, in a weak whisper," Liam said. "I should have done something." Sadness and guilt crashing together in an explosive mixture. Bill put a forceful yet oddly reassuring touch on his shoulder, serving as a reminder that relationships might endure, even in the face of tragedy. "Liam, you couldn't have prevented this. Sometimes life moves more quickly than we can comprehend, and it can be cruel. We can only commemorate Wyatt by remembering it and keeping him alive in our hearts, since he lived his life as he desired." Slowly, Liam nodded, but his movements were robotic and lifeless. The world appeared dimmer, the shadows longer, and the chamber colder. He pictured Wyatt's unavoidable heavy reality that life had once again reminded them both of its impermanence, its brutal unpredictability, but gave him some space. The hours went by in a flurry of messages, phone calls, and family members showing up at the Forrester mansion, each one serving as a reminder that Wyatt would always be missed in every way, in every laugh that ceased to reverberate, in every plan that would never be realized. As Liam explored the hallways, touched pictures recalled fights, reconciliations, and unguarded moments of happiness with Wyatt. The fact of death descended upon him like a dense mist. Hope greeted him in the kitchen, her eyes wide, her breath stopping as he said the unimaginable, and they both fell into a shared and isolating sadness, a tempest that drained them of all their power and demanded their attention. In the days that followed, Liam struggled with the practicalities, the media attention. Wyatt's fame would make his death unavoidable, and the basic human urge to cope with the loss. He went to meetings with friends, lawyers, and insurance reps while attempting to keep things somewhat normal, a feat that took all of his strength. However, in the quiet of his bedroom at night, the enormity of the tragedy struck relentlessly, a continual reminder that Wyatt, his brother, confidant, and occasionally reckless, but always fiercely devoted sibling, was no longer with him. He would be plagued by memories of battles, laughing, apologies, and intimate moments between siblings that only the closest relatives could ever comprehend. Liam's heart bled knowing that no amount of grief could undo the finality. But life went on, requiring him to be resilient and find a way to cope with the emptiness left behind. In these quiet, solitary hours, Liam came to understand that grief was not a single emotion, but rather a torrent, a river of sorrow, anger, disbelief, and love, all entwining. He also realized that he would always carry Wyatt with him in all of his decisions, in every significant choice, forever altered by the brother who had molded so much of his identity. Bill was a silent observer of a family's disintegration throughout it all, realizing that no amount of money, business savvy, or diplomacy could mend what had been done, bring Wyatt back, or close the wide wound that now marked every heartbeat Liam would experience. Going forward, the shock, the pain, the unrelenting grief, these would define the next chapter of their lives. They would serve as a reminder that in a world full of power struggles, scheming, and ambition, nothing could prepare them for the sudden, merciless cruelty of fate, and that even the strongest men must occasionally bow under the weight of heartbreak, knowing that life's tragedies are as inevitable as the unrelenting California sun that would rise tomorrow, unconcerned with their suffering. Nevertheless, even in the most depressing moments, the memory of Wyatt, the laughter, the love, the bond of brotherhood would linger, fragile but unbroken, a testament to a life far too short, but never forgotten, echoing in every tear shed, every whispered remembrance, and every silent, desperate plea to the universe for just one more moment, one more chance to tell him one more time how much he was loved. Although the Forster mansion's floor to ceiling windows let in a meager amount of morning sunlight, Liam found that the brightness simply served to lengthen the shadows of melancholy on the walls. He and Hope had slept in almost complete stillness, a brittle cocoon of grief, where the weight of Wyatt's absence was too much for them to bear. Liam felt unmet, suspended in a grief that seemed to have no bottom, as every look and every small movement reminded him that his brother, his blood, his confidant, the one with whom he had shared innumerable childhood memories, teenage rebellions, and adult misadventures, was really gone. The quiet between them was deafening, but Hope automatically sought for his hand, holding onto it as if the physical contact might anchor them both to reality. Finally, with a trembling voice, Hope muttered, "Liam, we have to tell Steffi Wyatt was also loved by her. She is entitled to know." With the words stuck in his throat, Liam gave a blank nod. He felt like he was about to rend a wound that would never heal at the idea of telling Steffi the news, since he was still getting used to the always changing craziness of life in Los Angeles. But it couldn't be avoided. Friends, family, and business would all be torn apart by Wyatt's absence, which had been a constant in everyone's lives and a tying force, with their hands occasionally brushing in wordless mutual comfort. Liam and Hope drove up the twisting road to Steffi's new apartment in downtown Los Angeles. By mid-morning, Liam wondered how he was going to pronounce the words. How could he make Wyatt's death seem so final without utterly shattering Steffi? Despite this, he was aware that no words could adequately convey the depth of the loss, and that anything he said would fall short. When they got there, Steffi opened the door with a worried frown. Liam, Hope. Her voice was calm, but tinged with concern, the natural apprehension of someone who had discovered over the years that the Spencers and Forresters rarely gave good news without some undercurrent of crisis. What's wrong? She inquired. Liam's whole body shook as he gulped forcefully and held Hope's hand before releasing it. His voice was broken and husky as he said, Steffi, it's Wyatt. Hope placed a reassuring hand on Steffi's arm before Liam said the words that no one could have predicted for her. He's dead. Steffi's response was instinctive and quick. A strangled scream ripped from her throat and reverberated throughout the room as her knees gave way and her hands flew to her face. Before she could fall, Liam grabbed her and held her close while the sobs tore through her frail body. Liam, who knew well the link Steffi had with Wyatt, the late-night confessions, the laughing, the way Wyatt could always make her smile even in her darkest moments, felt his heart shatter at the sight of Steffi's sorrow, and Hope's own tears were now streaming freely. No, this isn't real, Steffi exclaimed, her eyes unfocused and wide, as if she were gazing into a